I'm recording Kiddushin Ayin Aleph 71. We'll begin 71a, about 8 lines from the top at the colon. This is for Monday, October 24th, I guess. Okay. Gufa, we said before, Amar Ravida Mashmuel, Ravida said, Kol Haratzos Isal Eretz Yisrael. All other lands are, and we're talking about Yuchsin, about the purity of the Jewishness or the validity of the population. So all countries compared to Eretz Yisrael are like mixed dough, like things are mixed together. You have people with kosher lineage, people with non-kosher lineage, compared to Eretz Yisrael, which is a more genealogically pure. Eretz Yisrael Isel Bavel, but compared to Bavel, Eretz Yisrael was like dough, was like a mixture, and Bavel is more pure. Bimei Rabbi, Bikshu Lasos Bavel Isa Eretz Yisrael. They wanted to switch things up. They wanted to turn Bavel into the place that was assumed to be pure and was assumed to be not so pure, and Eretz Yisrael to be more pure. Rabbi said to them, you're putting thorns in my eyes. If this is what you want, let Rabbi Chanina deal with you. So Rabbi Chanina dealt with them. He said to them, this is what my tradition, what I received from Rabbi Ishmael, who said in his father's name, Kol Haratzos Isal Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael Isal Bavel, restoring the hierarchy that we mentioned before, that Bavel is the purest genealogy, followed by Eretz Yisrael, followed by other countries. Pinchas Bikshu Lasos Bavel Isal Eretz Yisrael, they wanted to reverse it again in the days of Rabbi Pinchas. Amar Lem Labadav, Rabbi Pinchas said to his servants, after I say these two things in the Beis Medrash, Tuluni Barisa Verutsu, like, pick me up in my chair and run out, like get me out of it right away. In other words, he was going to say something controversial and he didn't want to have to deal with the press conference afterwards. Ki ayo, when he came to teach, he said to the students, guess what? Chickens, from the Torah perspective, from the Midoraisa, chickens don't need to be slaughtered. Chickens don't need shechita. Well, this caused a bit of a stir. So everybody was thinking about this and, maybe discussing it. He also said, that the hierarchy of genealogical purity is Israel, Bavel at the top, followed by the land of Israel, followed by everybody else. And then, as he instructed, his servants, carried him out of there. They chased after him, but they couldn't catch him because he didn't want to discuss it. Clearly a controversial topic, and he didn't want to take any questions. So they examined his statement, and what they discovered was it was becoming dangerous. Rashi explains what was dangerous. They were going, if they investigated too closely, they would discover that there, among powerful families, there were questionable marriages, and perhaps some of them were mamzerim, and this would put them in danger because these powerful families would potentially take action against them. So they decided this is not worth pursuing any further. By the Heichal, in other words, the language of taking an oath, we have the ability to we have the data. We can expose those who are of impure lineage. I said, but what can I do? Sharei Gadol Yador and Nitmuba, who's going to get hurt? Like not only average people, but Gadol Yador, like people who are. Now this could mean strong people. Like again, the idea of danger, that if you cross the wrong people, then you're exposing yourself to danger. So if we reveal all of the truth about genealogy, we're going to encounter some powerful interests. Several Yitzchak, once once you have a mixed lineage in a family, consider it mixed. So you can't, you shouldn't try to separate all the strands, right? Like if there's kosher lineage in it, then go with that. Don't try to figure out exactly which family members are affected and which are not. Amar Abai said, up and on everything, we also have this Mishnah. Mishpachos based at Srifa Haisa Be'ever Yarden. There was a family on the east side of the Jordan River called Beis Srifa. Verichaka ben Sion Bizroa, and Ben Sion, who was some personality in this family, he pushed it away forcefully. In other words, he wouldn't let this family marry into the rest of the Jewish community. So there was another family there, Bekirva ben Sion Bizroa, and he forcefully allowed them to marry. Kiddushin Elu. If you have cases like this, then Eliyahu will come and determine, who's pure and who's impure. But the point of this story is a little unclear. But Abai says, so families like these, they were families that it's unclear what their lineage is, and powerful interests conspired to either include them or exclude them in the community. That will be resolved by Eliyahu Navi. But if you're not talking about forceful integration, you're talking about over time people married in, and it's unclear who's who's in and who's out. Then we're not assuming that the truth will ultimately be determined by Eliyahu. We have to treat them as a mixed family in which presumably we don't draw the line, and we don't say you can't marry into them, but you can. Tana, we have another brayta. So there was another family that had wasn't clear if they were genealogically Jewish and didn't have mamzeros in them or not. The rabbis didn't want to reveal which family this was. Like there were rumors, but the rabbis didn't want to say this family is problematic. Once every 7 years, the rabbis would pass on this information to their students and their families. Some say twice in 7 years. The idea being that, as we saw before, that it's permitted to marry into such a family if they're just rumors or there's a lack of clarity, but it's not known that the person you're marrying is of unkosher lineage. But maybe not such a good idea if you're a Yirei Shamayim, if you want success as a Torah scholar, maybe don't marry them. And so once or twice in 7 years, they would kind of pass on these little nuggets to their families and their students so that they would not marry into these families, but they did not take the step of, a full public disclosure and investigation, etc. Mistabra makes sense. If you're trying to understand, is it once or twice in 7 years? Probably once in 7 years, because we have another brisa. Agala mishpachos. If a person says, "I'll be a Nazir if I don't reveal the identities of these problematic families," Nazir mishpachos. Then yes, you should become a Nazir. What does it have to do with once or twice in 7 years? Just a second, I don't remember. So this ruling indicates that you should minimize as much as possible this idea of this investigation of lineage. So if you're determining is it once or twice in 7 years that you should whisper the information to those who might want to know, then go with the once in 7 years. Rabba said, Shem ben Arba Osios, and this is a digression having to do with things that you pass on only quietly and rarely. The name of God, those 4 letters, that how that is pronounced, or maybe what the mystical meanings are, that is passed on by wise men to their students, once in 7 years. Some say twice in 7 years. It makes sense that it's once in 7 years. God reveals his name to Moshe. He says, this is my name forever, but it's written without the vav. So you can read it, Zeshmi La'aleim. This is my name that should be hidden. So if you're supposed to keep it hidden, then the less frequently you pass it on, that's the more hidden it is. So once in 7 years. Rabba wanted to teach, give a drasha about God's name. An old man said to him, he told him, this is not something that should be publicized. The things about mysticism and God's name and so on are things that should be kept hidden. Rabbi Avina asked the following. Ksiv Zeshmi, it says in that pasuk we just discussed, God says, this is my name. Ksiv Zeshmi Lo'olam, this is my name, and this is its mention. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, what is God saying? Lo k'shani nichtav ani nikra. My name is written is not the way it's read. Nichtav ani b'yud hevavhe. It's written as yud hevavhe. V'nikra ba'alef daled, but it's read as alef daled nun yud, as we know. Rabbi Stam. Barishona Shem ben Shtemes Yosios Hayamos Shnos Eloho Adam. There's a 12-letter name of God. Don't ask me what that is. And it would be freely transmitted to anybody. But when there became a lot of people who were not discreet, that would only be revealed to the discreet people among the Kohanim. But Snuim, Shabakuna, Mavlimos, Obiniimos, Achiem Kohanim. And these people in the know, these Kohanim in the know, would whisper it under their breath or under the cover of the singing of the other Kohanim. So presumably, like in Birchas Kohanim, if it was being sung, then those people in the know would use this 12-letter name of God, but not out loud in the way that other people would hear. So it was kept under wraps, as it were. Tanya of Brisa, Amar Bitarfon, Palachas Alisi Achar Achi Imi Ladufan. One time I went up to the platform to do the Birchas Kohanim with my uncle. So I was near. I kind of listened in on the Kohen Gadol. He did the same thing. He pronounced this name of God, the 12-letter name of God, while everybody else was singing, so that he could use the name without everybody hearing it. Ravina says, Shem ben Arbaim U'Shtayim Osios Ein Moshe Noso. There's a 42-letter name of God. Nobody teaches this one. Ella Lamisha Tsanua, but you can only teach it to someone who is discreet, v'anav, and humble, v'omin b'chasiyamav, halfway through his lifespan. Ve'eno koes, person doesn't get angry. Ve'eno mishtaker, doesn't get drunk. Ve'eno ma'amid amidosov, and doesn't insist on his honor. V'chol hayodo, and anybody who knows this name, v'azaribo, and is careful with it, v'hamashama b'tara, and keeps it pure. Ohu v'lamala, he is loved, beloved above. V'nachmad lamata, and he is cherished, translates here on earth. Ve'emosim tells halbrios, people are awed with him. V'nochel shnei alamas, and he inherits 2 worlds. Shmuel said in the name of Saba, which could be a name or could be an old, another elder. Bavel b'cheskas kshera omedas. Back to the idea of genealogy. A family in Bavel, we assume that they're pure. Unless you have evidence to the contrary. a specific instance of problematic marriage. But other countries, we assume that you're not pure. Unless you investigate and you can prove that the marriages were in question of the people in question were kosher. Eretz Yisrael. What about the land of Israel? Muchzak l'pasul. If it's known to be pasul, then impure, then it's impure. Muchzak l'kasher, kasher. If it's known to be pure, then it's pure. So Haruf Kasher Gemara says, well, what do you mean? Amar muchzak l'pasul pasul. Well, by saying that only if something is known to be impure, then you consider it impure. That implies that in the case of doubt, you go with kosher, right? You assume that it's kosher. But then, hostile and kosher. But then we say, muchzak l'kasher kasher, that if you're known to be kosher, or you consider it kosher, which implies hostile and possible, that if you have no knowledge, specific knowledge, then we assume that you're impure. So which is it? No problem. No contradiction. Kan lahasio isha, kan lahotzi isha miyado. It depends what case we're talking about. In the case where you want to get married to somebody, then we're assuming that you're unfit unless there's evidence to the contrary that you're kosher. But in order to force a divorce, then you have to assume that once you're married already, then assume that it's kosher, and only specific evidence will require you to divorce. Anyone who has a Babylonian accent, masim lo isha. If you think he's from Babel, then you can assume that he's kosher and you can marry him. But now that there are cheaters, right? People who can put on this accent to try and convince people that they're from Bava when they're really not. You suspect that maybe you need a little more evidence before you accept somebody as Babylonian and pure. Zeiri Havaka Mishtame Mine Rabbi Yochanan. Zeiri was kind of avoiding Rabbi Yochanan. Because he was saying Nasiv Barte. Rabbi Yochanan was trying to marry off his daughter to Zeiri. Zeiri was, I guess, one of his good students, and he's like, "Why don't you marry my daughter?" And Zeiri was avoiding it. Now, Rabbi Yochanan was a Tana from Eretz Yisrael, a Lamara from Eretz Yisrael. So Eretz Yisrael, the people were not, according to what we've seen so far, people were not automatically considered kosher. So basically, even though Rabbi Yochanan was his teacher, he wasn't so sure that his family was kosher. He was afraid that there was mamzeris in there. One day they're going down they're taking a walk together. They had to cross a pond. So Zirei took Rabbi Yochanan, put him on his shoulders, and walked across. Took him across. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, so you clearly respect me as your teacher. You like my teaching. But you don't trust that my daughter is good enough for you. My datach. What's your reasoning? It's not if it's because of the Mishnah, our Mishnah. So Atu Kane Levi of Israeli Kulu Saliku, right? It's not like not all of the Kohanim Levim and Israelim came from Babel. So Kiheche di Shtayr Mehane, just as some of the kosher people were left behind in Babel. Shtayr Mehane. So some also of the non-kosher people were left behind. So you have such confidence in Babel, but why is that? Why do you have more confidence in Babel than Eretz Yisrael? Our Mishnah implies that, our logic dictates that there are also some unkosher people left behind in Babel. So it's the same. So don't look down on us Eretz Yisrael people. Ishtamute ha diamar Rabbi Lazar. But what Rabbi Yochanan didn't consider was lo Allah Ezra mi Bavel ad she asa kisolas nikia. Ezra did not come up to Israel from Bavel before he had basically ejected from the community all of the non-kosher people who had married in. So it's interesting that we use Ezra's setup because in the Tanakh, Ezra and Nehemiah, they force people in Israel when they get there to divorce their non-Jewish wives. So the Gemara is assuming that he must have done the same thing in Bavel before leaving. He's going to insist that the Jewish community commit itself to purity. Well, and only then did he go up. So Rabbi Yochanan didn't consider this when he said that. Well, there must have been some non-kosher people left in Bavel too, but he didn't consider this statement of Rabbi Lazar that wasn't the case. That Ezra made sure that there were only kosher people left in the community in Bavel. Ula goes to Pumbedisa, the house of Rabbi Yehuda. Chazien Rabbi Yitzchak Berei Rabbi Yehuda. He saw Rabbi Yitzchak his son. The God of Lo Nasif. He was he'd grown up, but he didn't get married yet. Amalei. So Ula asked him, "My tamalok on Mansiv Le Mar Itzel Grey. Why haven't you found a wife for your son yet?" Amalei. He said, "Miyadana Mehecha Ansiv. Where am I going to find somebody that that I know is kosher for him to marry?" Amalei, those are the very, this is kind of the, the end state of this whole line of pursuit, like this whole, genealogical witch hunting, if you will. Eventually, people aren't going to get married anymore. Like, what makes you so pure? You don't even know yourself. Maybe you're also a product of a problematic marriage. Dilma mehanach tichsiv. Maybe your ancestors are also nashim and inu b'sulos Yehuda. Basically referring to rape during times of war, right? Like maybe you're descended from a non-Jewish ancestor. Maybe you're also a mamzer. And if you want to say, "Oh, he's what you're talking about a mamzer, a non-Jew who has a child with a Jewish woman, havlad kosher." That's not a mamzer. That's kosher. But with Dilma Mehanich to Sivuhu, maybe there's another situation that resulted in that occurred in your ancestry. Pashochvim al mitos shem seruchim al arusosam. Pasuk says those who lie on ivory beds and have putrid beds, right? So what does this mean? Rabbi Yossi says, this refers to people who urinate on their beds while standing naked before their beds. Rabbi Avo made fun of him. But it says about such people, they will be the first ones to be exiled, right? Okay, so like maybe it's uncouth, but is that something that deserves, to be the first ones to be exiled? So Rabbi Avo explains, what does this mean? It's not meant to be taken literally. It's a euphemism for these are people who party together, and they move their beds together, and they wife swap. And they end up having children with a woman other than their wives. So this is really a case of mamzer. So if you interpret the pasuk that way, so if this is talking about our ancestors, we're not so pure, right? We ourselves may be mamzerim. So don't be so picky about who your kids marry. So Yehuda says, so like, what should we do? What you should do is go by silence. At first I thought this meant like, these are things that should be basically ignored, right? Like don't look for trouble, but that doesn't seem to be what the Gemara means. As goes from the following example, I think it actually means you should find people who are quiet people. Those are the people that you can assume are not mamzerim. Kihai de Badke B'nei Marava. This is how the people in the West in Eretz Yisrael would check out lineage. Kiminsu Be Trey Bahade Adari, when two people were fighting with each other. Havu the first one to settle down, Amri, they would say about him, that person has better yields. Because I guess the idea is that that person doesn't have as much anxiety about his yichus, therefore he's able to calm down more easily than the other person. Amarav Shtikusa de Bavel, Hainu Yusa. That's the peacefulness, the quiet of families in Bavel. That's why we think that they have better yichus. And is that right? Since Marva Ikla Rav Leve Bar Shafei Chala. Rav once came to the house of this the son of Shafei Chala, a name, and he checked him out. My love be doesn't mean he checked the yichus. He didn't. It's the assumption is like when it says he came to their house and checked them out, that he's checking their family records. Where it says no, bishnikusa. When it says he checked them out, it means he checked out their character. And if it turned out they were quiet, settled people, then he assumed that their yichus was good. Beduki Yishake Loshake. Amar Rav, Rav says, if you see two people that are fighting with each other, one of them has a genealogical problem, and therefore, that's why this fight has been instigated, as if by God, so that the difficult person will not end up marrying, and who presumably has a yichus problem, will not end up marrying the good person, right? The person with the good lineage. If you see two families fighting, if there's a family like a clan having a feud with another clan, one of them has a problem, a genealogical problem in their lineage. So don't marry into that family. So that's why there's this feud, so that the Hatfields don't marry into the McCoys, because one of them has one family has a genealogical problem, and that's how this feud was engineered by God, as it were. Amar Papa Saba Mishmei Rav. Papa said, Bavel Berea. Bavel is healthy. Mishon Mesa, meaning genealogically. Mishon is some other country, is basically dead, means everybody there is a problem. Madai Chola, Medea is sick, right? Means there's some problems there. Elam Gosesosam. Elam is on its deathbed. In other words, it's not as bad as Mishon, but it's worse than Madai. Mabe Chola what's the difference between sick people, the metaphor for sick people, and people on their deathbed? Most sick people recover. People on their deathbed generally die. Okay. Now we're switching to geography. So if similar to at the beginning of Kiddushin, where we wanted to know what is considered Eretz Yisrael for the purposes of the requirement for the witnesses to say that a divorce was signed and sealed before I witnessed its execution. So here too, we're wondering, like, what is the boundaries of Bavel in terms of the assumption of genealogical purity? Rav Amar Adnahar Azak. So this is the east-west thing. So Bavel, like the main population center of Bavel, is between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. But what about going further east or west? So Rav Amar Adnahar Azak, Shmuel Amar Adnahar Yoneh. These other two rivers are the boundaries. Le'el Bediglas. What about going upstream on the Tigris River? Rav Amar Ad Bagda Avna until Bagdan Avna, some places upriver. Shmuel Amar Ad Mushkin. Till this other place in Mushkin. So V'lo Mushkini Bichlal. But does that mean until Mushkini? Does that mean Mushkini is not included in Bavel? Another statement is that Mushkini is like the Golos, like the Golos, meaning the exile of Bavel. It's as good as Bavel for you. See, Ella. So what it means is Ad Mushkini Umushkini Yuchal. Now, when Shmuel says until Mushkini, means including Mushkini. Okay. What about downstream? How far does it go? How far does Bavel go? Shmuel, Apamia Tata, lower Apamia. And why is it called Lower Apamia? Tarte Apamia Haven. There's two Apamia places. One is Upper Apamia, one is Lower Apamia. Chadak Shera, the one that's further upriver, is part of Bavel, and genealogical fitness is good there. But the lower one is beyond the pale. There's a distance of a person between you, between the V'kokapte Adane, and actually, the people from Upper Apamia wouldn't marry the people from Lower Apamia. Afilu neural emotionally Adane. They wouldn't even lend a flame from one to the other. They really, whoops, Joel. Sorry, one sec. They wouldn't even lend a flame to each other. That's how much they didn't trust each other. And how do you know which is the not kosher place? And how do you know this? Because it's a place where they speak the language of the next country over, Meshan, which we already discussed is a problematic country. Le'el Kafras Hecha. What about going north on the Euphrates? Le'el Bifras Hecha. How about going north? Where's the border? Rav Amar Ad Akra Tulbakne, till this place. Shmuel Amar Ad Gishra de Bepras, the Euphrates bridge. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Ad Ma'avdas de Gizma, until the Gizma crossing. Layat Abaye Vitema Rabbi Yosef Ad Rav. And Abaye, or maybe Rabbi Yosef, would curse whoever relied on this opinion of Rav. The Rav Layat. So he cursed this opinion of Rav, who says to the Akra de Tulbanke, but not Shmuel. So the assumption here seems to be that Shmuel's border was even further north, further from the center of Bavel. So, why criticize Rav if you're not criticizing Shmuel? So the statement should be that both Rav and certainly Shmuel were there. These opinions were looked down upon. Or you can answer the element of the Rav. Really, it was Rav's opinion that they denigrated. But what about Shmuel? It was Shmuel Lolayat, but what about Shmuel that included a place that was even further north? Because you got your geography wrong. That Shmuel, really, it was Rav that was further north, but Shmuel was within bounds. He was okay. The who parsai. But so why you're making this geographic mistake? Because that bridge, the place names change, and this place that in the time of Shmuel was further south is now further north. Okay. Amalei Abaye Rav Yosef. Abaye asked Rav Yosef, "Hagisa de Pras." So what about on the west side of the river Pras, the Euphrates? How far does Bavel go? Amalei, my date. Why are you asking Mishum Biram? You're asking about the status of Biram, which is a place west of the Euphrates. Miyachse de Pumbedisa, mi Biram Nasve. It turns out that the you want to know about Biram. Biram, even the most strict, the most pure residents of Bavel will accept women as wives from Biram. So Biram is clearly within the bounds of Bavel. And we'll stop here, and I'll pick it up on Tuesday from Rav Papa on 72a.